Hi, Joe Cerrone. Welcome to CAD 230. Today we're going to look at how to do this links assembly. This is Lab 9B. If we look at the textbook curriculum, we're going to be doing a bottom-up assembly of these links that we created in, I believe it was Chapter 4. And essentially what we'll do is we'll create an assembly document with these components. The first component that's inserted is fixed, meaning it's the parent of the assembly, and the other parts are built off of that or related in their motion to that part. And so we will fix that part, and then we will add mates, which will take away certain degrees of freedom. In other words, it lets it only move in concentric circles or about in axes. And so we'll use these standard mates for the most part to create these different assemblies, or this assembly. It's called a bottom-up assembly because we've already built all the parts and we're just putting them together. When you become a design engineer, oftentimes you have machines that are already in existence that you can put together from the existing parts. Top-down assembly would be where we would create the entire component and then spin off the individual parts. So top-down is a little bit more complicated. This will be a inch drawing, imperial units, American National Standards Institute, and we'll be using mates to restrain certain degrees of freedom. We're going to start off by saying assemble, insert components, and we're going to insert this double link. So with that, I'm going to close this. New, assembly, okay. Units are already in inches. I'm going to go into my parts for my links assembly. And I'm going to start off by inserting this double link. It's going to go to the origin automatically, but just to get a feel for this, we're going to go to Hide Show, and we're going to show the origin. And that's where the part's going to wind up. The center is going to be right there. So if you click right there, you'll notice that it's lined up on center. So that's our origin. The first component is fixed, meaning that there will be a letter F here, which means it doesn't move. Later on, we'll look at how to unfix something. If you right-click on it, you can remove the fixed aspect of that part. We'll add the other components. You can either browse and continue to add the same component by saying Insert Component, or a quicker way is to hold the Control key and just to drag additional copies of it. And so we're going to drag out 2 more copies of it, and then we're going to change the color of the base part or the fixed part to whatever color you prefer. And then after we have these different parts, we're going to go through and add the mates. And so before we can add the mates, we'll add another component, which will be this link right here. And then we'll start creating the mates for those parts. So back to our Solidworks. I'm going to window back a little bit, and then I'm going to insert the other components. Actually, before I insert the other components, we're supposed to copy this. And so I'm going to zoom out, and you can either browse for it and insert it again, like that. Or you can just hold the Control key and hold Control, click, and drag. So we've got our 3 components. And then we're going to change the color of this component right here by clicking on the beach ball and then clicking on this first part. And then you can choose whatever color you like. Now we'll insert the other part, which is the single link, and this part will be then mated to these faces using a concentric mate. And what concentric means is that the centers of the circles are at the same point, so they will line up. So we'll assign that mate to that, and we'll use a concentric mate, and then we'll use the with mate, which is under the advanced mates. And they're great. It works really well once you learn how Solidworks puts things together. In my mind, it's kind of like creating things out of Lego. I used to do a lot of Lego with my son, and when you put things together, you know, you can think of them as mating. And it's actually kind of like virtual Legos as we start to put these different components together. And so we'll mate it concentric, and then we'll mate it with, and then we'll make copies of that so that we have this all strung together like that. So we'll have 3 and 4. Okay, so to make the concentric mate, what we're going to do is to mate this component right here. So we'll say mates, and then we'll select this circular aspect of it, and then any of these circular features, because they're all concentric already. And so we'll click here, and then what it'll do is it'll offer what it feels is the best choice. And it's right, concentric is what we want, so we'll green check mark that. And what that does is it just lines up the centers of these. You can still move this part, but it's going to be like there's an invisible rod that's holding them together. So I'm just going to move it a little bit off the part, and I'll green check mark it. Then I'm going to come back here to mates, and I guess I could have stayed in that aspect of it, but what we're going to do here is we're going to go to the advanced mates by clicking on advanced mates, and we're going to use the with mate. Now with is really not very complicated. You have 2 boxes. The first box will be the first part, and the second box will be the second part. You need 2 sides to do a with mate, and so what we're going to do is we're going to select this side, or that face. And as you look at Solidworks, notice how the cursor changes to a square like that. That means it's selecting a face, versus if you go to an edge, you'll get a line like that. So you'll get all these visual cues as you start to work with it. So we're in the advanced mate, we're using the with mate, and we'll click on this side, and then we'll click the center wheel on the mouse and hover, click the other side. And so now the first box is populated, and it knows right away to go to the second box. And it appears on the book that they want this link to be over here, so I'm going to click this link here, and then that face there, and there we have it. Those parts are now mated. I'm going to green check mark it, spacebar, isometric view. Now we're going to add 2 more of these, and we're going to link them as well. So we can either click and drag this part, or we can insert it. I'm going to click and drag, or control drag rather. So I hold control, and then I can drag off a copy, and then I can do the same thing. And then we can start to put this together. So again, we'll go with the concentric mate. And what I'll do is I'll grab a circular feature here, circular feature here. It's smart enough to know that those are concentric. It will offer a concentric mate. I'll green check mark that. It'll stay in the mates area, so I can go then to the advanced mates, and I can choose the with mate. And then again, the first part is the first box, so this face and this face, and then it'll go to the next one. And you want to keep them in order. So if you click the left side, then you do the left side here, and then the right side here. And that's it, green check mark. And we'll continue to do that. It's actually kind of fun. Now I thought this was some type of an advanced mate, so I'm going to bail, do it again. A basic mate. So check it, concentric. You can also use the shortcut here and then go to advanced mates with. And remember, you want to keep them in the order. So left side, right side, and then the corresponding components on the other part. And green check mark. And so that's perfectly centered on the width of that part. And we'll continue. Space bar, isometric. Circular features first, concentric, advanced mate second, width, and it looks like we need one more of those links. And so we can say insert component, and we can go and browse it. Which one was it? Single link. And just drop it. And then we'll mate concentric or round, advanced, with part 1 and part 2. Spacebar, isometric view. Okay, so these are mated, these are linked, and they have kind of like virtual pins, and so we can move this, and so we can move it up and down, and it'll move within the degrees of freedom for that. We're going to insert the pins now. If we take a look at the textbook curriculum, it talks a little bit about this anti-aliasing, and it talks about errors in the mates, and we'll take a look at that as we go through. You will start to add and remove mates because sometimes things bind up or they get over constrained and then they don't move, or you come up with certain things that are sort of impossible for Solidworks to do, and it will error out. So all kinds of interesting things that we can work with. So we're going to start off by inserting the alignment pin, and this is the there's actually two parts, and so we've got the pin part, the male part, and then we have the other part, which is the female part. And so it has us go through and start with creating 6 of these and 6 of these. And you know, we can follow it step by step, or we can just insert them. And so I think you'll understand as we go through. So get it into an orientation that I think looks good. And then I'm going to go insert component, and I'm going to go and grab this pin here, drop it right there, and then I'm going to go and insert the other pin, and OK, and drop it right here. Now, since this one's orientated this way, a lot of times it's just visually, rather than have the computer just go and throw it where it wants to go through and rotate one of the components. So we can click on this point and rotate it kind of to an orientation that's more receptive to where it's going to go, which is in that area there. And then as we work with these, we're going to go through and we're going to start off by mating the faces of these. And let's follow the book here for this part. So we've got our copies, I think. Let's see. No, we're going to make our copies of it first. And so I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to hold control. There's 2, control, 3, control. So there's our 6 pins. And our other 6. Okay, we're going to start to constrain the pin alignment. And what we're going to do is we're going to select this face here and this face here. That'll give us a concentric mate, meaning the holes are going to be lined up. And then after we do that, we're going to select the bottom edge of this face here, and then we're going to select the flatness on the other side like we're pushing that in, and that will give us a coincident mate. In other words, it'll put that face flush up against the other face. Okay, so we can start off by going to the mate tool, clicking on this round, and then this one, green check mark, and then we can do the same for this one. Usually I'll use the concentric mate right away on this, and I'll show you that in the next one. So here and here, green check mark, and then to do the concentric mate, this face, and then where that would mate to here, which would be that one. And we'll do the same on the other side. So it's like virtual Lego. And we'll do that a bunch more times here. And like I say, I usually finish with one component before I go and do a different one. Now sometimes it kind of gets in the way. As long as they're concentric, you can just grab it and pull it out, but you have to get out of the mate command to do that. So you can disassemble these or take them apart. And then you can go back if you need more space to see. So I'm going to pause this, put the other pins in, and then I'll resume. Actually, before I do that, let me show you the anti-aliasing. So if we go through and we were to do this concentric mate, and then we bring this part out a little bit. And then if we go into the mates and we want to mate this part to this side right here, there we go. Anti-aliasing or mate alignment will flip it to the other side of that face. And so that's not what we want. And so when the parts flip the wrong way, this part right here will flip them to the correct orientation. That's basically what that is. Okay, we've put all the pins in. We've applied our mates. We can go over here and we can see in our tree here our different components. And if we expand down our mates, as you hover over each of the mates, you can see how that mate is applied and where that is applied. If we check back in the curriculum, you can move it along the motions that are available. Right now this will do anything. It'll go through walls and things like that, because the only degrees of freedom that we have restrained are the concentric mates, and so it's going to pivot on it, but you could easily make it go through itself. So with that, that completes this exercise video for Lab 9B for basic SolidWorks assembly modeling. And as we look at this, again, when we save this file, we have to remember that all those components are in separate places. And so when we start to look at management of assembly drawings, we're going to use pack and go to be able to keep those in one spot and then turn them into the drop box. So we're going to save the file, and you want to save it into the same location as all the parts are. And so I'm going to save it as my initials - lab 9B. And then after we've saved that, we're going to go up to Files, Pack and Go, and we're going to save it as a zip file to that same folder. And so I'm going to go to my 9, that's fine, and I'm going to save it as my initials. And that will save that in a format that I can then turn into the Dropbox. Okay, that completes this video.